All right. It's really been hectic for me. So, but we have to sort this out today, right? Okay. Um, so on today's class, I think I have to keep it minimum of 15 to 20 minutes because network is really throwing me off balance. So on today's class, is file handling. I've repeated this and this over and over again. Okay, but we'll still achieve it today. So file handling in Python, um, it encompasses how we can, for now, read and write files on the run or the fly rather, anyhow. So the topics that we're going to look out for today is reading and writing files, and then working with JSON and CSV files. So CSV is just uh a sister type of file to Excel, just that its delimiter, um, its delimiter is usually comma, comma. And the while JSON files are JavaScript files. So just like we talked in the data structure part two, I think I sent that out yesterday. So the JSON file is likened to dictionaries, right? So where you have keys and pairs, sorry, keys and value pairs, keys and value pairs. So, but one distinct thing about JSON file is that um it it is intertwined. That's to say, you can have a key inside of another key, inside of another key, and so on. You can have a key pair inside of another key or a value and all that. So you can have different dictionaries intertwined, and that makes it so complex for you to interpret, right? So that's why we make use of JavaScript to see how we can unravel the complexity around it. So, but today we are going to limit the class to reading, writing of files. So let's go very quickly. Reading and writing of files. So the first thing when you want to read up a file, although there is a library that helps you do that as well, and that's the Pandas library, which we know or we will know later on as the classes continues. It has to do with how do they call it? Data manipulation, where you will kind of assess your data and then ensure that you have done all what it takes, right? To read up your data and then try to make some changes or thereabout to the data. So, but most times you might not have access to pandas, or you may not want to use pandas to execute your tasks, right? So it is needful you have the skill of reading and writing files with just Python scratch code. So that will help you to achieve more, right? So how do we then read up and write files? The first thing is you have to do what? Open up the file. You have to do what? Open the file. So how do we open how do we open the file? With open, right? So Python is very, very simple. This is one of it. Python is simple because we have with open, uh, then you open a bracket, example dot what text. And then this example dot text is what is your file, is the file you're working with. So because this is the file we are working with, we want to know the format of the file, which is always what, which not always, please, which is dot txt. So when you see dot txt, it tells you that it is what, a text file. It is what, a text file. And when you see .csv, to tell you it is a CSV file. So you can have files in different formats, like .las. You can have it in .xlsx. You can as well have it in different formats as the case may be. Then when you have opened the file, at this point, you will be required to tell what mode you're using to open the file, right? So I was given an illustration previously before the network took me off about files you get from external sources, right? So this is how it works. There are some files that, okay, let's use an Excel file for instance. Let's use an Excel file for instance. When you have an Excel file coming from an external source and then you want to access it in your PC, you realize that you have to you will have to, when you open it in your local machine like your PC, it will, most times you will not be able to edit anything there until you hit the enable edit tab, right? Okay, so after that, once you've been able to enable the edit mode, you now see that you can how do they to say it? You can modify the file, or you can add or subtract, or you can remove rather. You can add or remove contents from that particular file. But there are some of those files that you realize that when you open them up or when you launch them in your PC, you cannot modify it. Those kind of files are just read-only files. So your letter R represents a read-only kind of file, right? And then having explained that, it means that you can read your files only without making modifications to those files. So when you have shown the mood, you now do what? You close the bracket and always let Python know that this should be done as a file. It shouldn't just be done as a data. That's one of the limitations that Pandas has. That this read and write file has over Pandas. Because Pandas, most especially when you're dealing with CSV files, it only reads up the data in the row and the column kind of stuffs for you. But here you can have layers, you can have different formats of write-ups being displayed for you, right? With this read and write file. So when you have done that, you have to initiate your column. So what your column does is that it tells you that, look, this is a block of code. And that's why after that, you need to have what? An indentation by on the next line, rather. So this indentation, so for line in file, now is the time we want to see the contents of the content of the write-ups we have of the write-up in the file that we have opened, right? So we now say for line in file. So for the line, for each of the line in this file, this file you just opened now, this is the variable name as file. So I can decide to change it to as example, right? So this will now tell you that, look, this is the file name. So the accessing of the contents will be inside of that file. So for line in file, we do what? We print line.strip. Okay, let me explain this strip. I was supposed to have done this when we're doing data structure in how do you call it? Part 1. All right, so dot strip, what dot strip does for you is that it picks out the characters or the words of the write-ups you have either in your container. Let's say for instance a list now. In your list, each of the items there, it will pick it out and display them one after another. So how do we achieve that? We'll make use of what? The dot strip function. So this dot strip function is what helps us to access that. So look at this to be, you have a file, and this is a text file, right? And let's say you have a long episode of episode rather, you want to share with somebody, and then so you want to use your file opening and read skill in Python to access that. So the line.strip will do what? It will go through the first line and access the content there from the first to the last, and then it moves ahead until it has accessed all the content in your file. So if you run this guy, we're running this guy and nothing has been displayed. That's because we have the file here. So if you open this file, that's the example dot this file. If you open it up, you realize that there is no content here. So assuming I have a content, let's say um yeah, yeah, right. So having this content, let's save it. So if I rerun this guy, it will come up, right? So it picks up like that, like that. So I can even decide to copy the whole of this guy and then put it out here. Let's say in a new line, put it out here. And let's come back. Sorry for this highlights. Let's read this guy again. Sorry, we didn't save that. And nobody told me. We didn't save that. Okay, that's been saved. So let's come back to this guy. So you see, it will read out the first line comes first, and then all of that and that and that until the last one, right? So that is as beautiful as that. So that is how to read, and that's how to open and read a file. So this file we've read now, we cannot do anything to it except we come to the back end to maybe modify it. So let's go back. Let's take our file back to the way it was. All right. So the next thing is how to write to a file, writing to a file, right? So we still make use of the keyword with open. So whenever you want to access a file, either to read the file or to write to the file, you need to always what? Use the keyword with open. So with open grants you access to the file first, and then the file name comes in with its unique uh extension that or format. So in this case, we are having it to be what? TXT. So if you look very closely, you will see, if you look very closely, you will see that this guy is in what? TXT. Is in TXT. So that's the same thing here. File example.txt. I hope I've not been disconnected. God. All right, so let's continue. Comma. And then remember the mode we were talking about. So now we want to write to the file. So that's why we make use of what? W. Write. So we make use of what? W. Write. And this W, what it to do is that to allow you to edit or to write to this particular file. So, and remember we are writing it as, this is the file name, file, right? And then we have it to be what? File.write, file.write, then the content you want to include. So this one, because we are writing into it, so it will be what? File, the file name, file dot write. So you're telling Python what I'm typing now should be included or should be written on the file. So what's the content of what we are writing? Hello world, then with an exclamation sign. So the backward slash, yeah, I think, yeah, backward slash n is telling you that it will, after writing this, your cursor will go to a new line. So that's what this guide does for you. And then you can also write another thing, file.write, welcome to Python file handling, right? Then you close your bracket. So when you run this guy, nothing will be displayed. Mind you, we did not use the print out function here. So because we did not use the print out function, we are not expecting to see anything here. So we can go back to the file and we'll see what we have written so far. So you can see it here. We have hello world on the first line because with the help of the backward slash n, it will now take us to a new line where it wrote welcome to Python file handling. So that should be clear enough. And then appending to a file. You can as well append to a file. Let's say, for instance, you have already written and you forgot to write something. So you can append to a file. So with file open, example.txt A is used for appending. W is used for writing. R is used for what? Reading. So when you're using W, you will overwrite what is inside the file already. So that's why it's advisable if you want to add up something to an existing file, you make use of what? Append. So append is what you should use as file, and then file.write. Don't mind this write. This write is just the process. But the main thing that Python will look out for is appending. Because while you're appending, you still need to write something to add to it, right? So, but now you're not writing a fresh a fresh um a fresh content to the file, but rather you're adding up to the file. So if we run this guy and we come back here, sorry, let's reload this guy and we come back here, you see, you realize that the appended line has been added to our file. So it's as simple as that. So let's look at working with CSV files. So like I said, we can always make use of Python pandas to to go around all of this working with CSV and JSON files, but there are times where you may not be able to have access to it, right? So how do we work with CSV rather? The first thing is to import CSV. So you import CSV. Reading a CSV file is this way. With open, right? So I have with open data.csv. Data.csv. So we are opening up a CSV file. And the CSV file name is data.csv. Then the mode in which we are opening it is the read mode because we want to read the content in the file. So read as CSV file. So look at how this one looks very different. So we'll now have a CSV reader being equal to csv.reader, then open and close a bracket to give you what? This to include what? The CSV file. Then for role in the CSV reader, print each of those rows. So this is it. You first of all open the CSV file in a read mode as this is the name you're giving to it. This name is a dummy, you can change it, right? And then you will now have to use a CSV reader module. A CSV reader module. So this CSV reader module will help you to access what is in the CSV file. But for you to now display this thing you've accessed has been saved to this variable name, CSV reader. So for you to be able to display what has been saved into this CSV reader variable, you now make use of what? A loop, just like we did for our normal text. You make use of what? A loop. So the loop will be a for loop. So for role in CSV reader. So the role now is it will go to the first row, pick out the right top on the first row, the second row, just like that, until it executes all what it should. So if you run this guy, nothing will be displayed because we don't have anything on our data file. So this is our CSV data file. We don't have any item in it. So, but we can write to a CSV file as well. So with open output.csv. Now we are writing to a new CSV file, output.csv. How will the mode now be? The mode will be what? In a writable form. And then for us to get a new line, there must be a space. So when you write, there must be a space between, that is what this new line entails. So it's, if you look very closely, there was nothing written there. It's left blank as a CSV, right? And then the previous one was CSV reader. But now we want to write to the CSV. So we make use of what? CSV writer. So CSV writer will be equal to csv.writer, open and close the file name which you've initiated here, right? So the CSV writer dot write row. So this write row is actually a keyword in CSV that you must use. Just like we use CSV dot reader. So it's a module in CSV, right? So you must make use of it. So CSV.write row. So you're writing this row, you're writing another row, you're writing another row. So when you run this guy and you come to your output.csv file, let's open our output.csv file. So you'll be seeing it, right? Like this and like this. So this is what this new line does for you. Remember here, we made use of our backslash and n. That is what it does. But here we only initiated that once you're done with the existing line which you're writing, to go to the new line, there must be a space, right? So that ends the class for working with CSV. So let's look at working with JSON file. So remember I told you JSON file is a file that you write using JavaScript. And JavaScript is just like when you're dealing with JavaScript is more like you're working with dictionaries, right? So we have a JSON data here. So if you look at it, it looks like your normal dictionary where you have your keys and your values, key values, key values. So this is how your JSON file looks like. And then with open, mind you, you have to import JSON first because those guys are very unique data files. So with open rather, user.json, right? We want to write to JSON file as this guy, and then this is how to write JSON.dump, right? User underscore data, comma, JSON file, this guy you've initiated here, comma. So this user underscore data is the data that we want to write into the JSON file. And then what kind of indentation are we going to use? Let our indent be equal to what? 4. You can always change it depending on what you're working with. And then having written all that, okay, let's extract this code out from here and see what we have done so far. So if I come to this user JSON file, I should be seeing what I have written so far, right? So you have the name, age, and city. So now we want to read, sorry, we want to read the file. So how do we now read the file? Reading JSON file from a file, JSON data rather from a file, you use what? With open user.json, that's the file name. And then the mode will be in what? R, because you're reading it as what? The variable name. Mind you, there's a difference between the file name and the variable name. So this is the variable name, while this is the actual file name. So data will now be equal to JSON.load. Mind you, in CSV, it was CSV dot what? Reader, then the variable name. But in JSON, it's JSON.load, then print data. So if you run this guy, you'll be seeing your data being displayed here. So I think we've taken beyond 15 minutes already. So I have a little practice for us. It is about logging rather, and retrieving user data. So I will leave you with this. You run the code and try to interact from what I have said on all of these, right? And then get back to me with your questions if you have any. So this will be the end of today's class as we unravel the last week for the Python training by next week.